Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting
Recording in progress.
Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting of the Carpinteria Valley Water District to order. Can you have the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The roll call, please, Lisa.
Director Holcomb,
Yeah, here.
Director Johnson,
Here.
Director Roberts,
Here.
Director Balch,
Here.
and Director Van Wingerden.
Yes.
Okay, 5 present.
Item number 3, public forum. Any person may address the board of directors on any matter which is its jurisdiction, which is not on the agenda. This is for the regular board meeting. Nothing. And then we have number 4, the consent agenda. There's 2 items on the consent agenda. Item 4A, minutes of the regular board meeting held on April 24, 2024. And 4B, disbursement report for April 11, 2024, May 10th, 2024. Is there any discussion?
Point of order, I think I abstain on A case because I wasn't here then.
Got it. Any other comments from any of the directors? Then can we have a motion, please?
I move to approve.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? The roll call, please.
Director Holcomb,
Abstain.
Director Johnson,
Aye.
Director Roberts,
Aye.
Director Balch,
Aye.
and Director Van Wingerden.
Yes.
Okay, so 4-1 with Director Holcomb abstaining. Motion passes.
Then we got item number 5, unfinished business, none. And at this time, the board will go into closed session to discuss the following item. Item number 6, conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. District negotiator Jeffrey Denken, employee organization SEIU Local 620. Is Jeff going to be there? Or oh, sorry. We'll go in the conference room.
Recording stopped.
Okay, we're back in open session, and there are no reportable items. Then we adjourn the meeting of the Carpinteria Valley Groundwater and Sustainability Agency. Call to order. Number 2, public forum. Any person may address the board of directors on any matter within its jurisdiction which is not on the agenda. Lisa? Scott, you want to speak, or?
I think I'll speak at 5B.
Got it, okay. Then we go on to item number 3, approval items. Again, minutes of the meeting of the board held on April 10th, 2024. And 3B, disbursement report for January 16th, 2024, May 10th, 2024. So again, we're going to approve them both at the same time. Any questions, any comments? Then can we have a motion, please?
I move to approve. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Then a roll call, please.
And just to be clear, we're doing this just for the minutes.
Oh,
This one's not a consent agenda.
okay, sorry, then we'll do 3A only. Sorry about that.
Oh, and I was,
So far, 3A only. Go ahead.
Okay, Director Holcomb?
yes.
Director Johnson?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Balch?
Aye.
And Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-0.
Then we go back to item number 3B, disbursement report for January 16, 2024, May 10, 2024. Any comments, any discussion?
Polly motions for approval.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Johnson?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Balch?
Aye.
And Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Number 4, unfinished business, none. Then we got number 5, new business, 5A. Consider the CGSA annual report for action, Bob, and a presentation by David O'Rourke, DSI Water Solutions.
Yeah, so this is the report, or the presentation for the annual report that was due on April 1st by DWR. So it just summarizes kind of where we're at. Just caveating that, we just submitted the GSP in January, and so there's not a lot to report, but we did complete the report, and Dave will talk about some of the findings. I'll hand it over to Dave.
Hello.
Good evening.
Do you guys have the presentation? Yes. Good to see you all again. So yes, as Bob just said, the GSP was just submitted at the end of January. This thing was due April 1st. There wasn't a whole lot of action in between, except we had to catch up with all the data that we presented. So this one was for water years 21, 22, and 23. I'm not going to show you every single figure from that report, but you have access to it. So let's start with the first slide. As you are all aware, it rained in the last year. So the last 3 bars on the right are the years that we're presenting the data for in this report. 2021 and 2022 were both critical years. One had about 5 inches, one had about 10, significantly less than your average of 17.5. And then you had almost 30 in the year 2023. So good news. Next. I'm presenting this one. So when you look at the report, this presents the hydrographs, the water level hydrographs of the 9 RMS wells. So if you want to look at them all at the same time, you can kind of get a sense of the entire basin at once. It's a little hard to read some of those numbers on the wall right now, but the next one, so these are the 9 RMS wells, but when you go to Appendix D of the report, there are 28 water level hydrographs, so you can inspect each one of them, in greater detail, going back for the entire period of record that they have. They all also show the minimum threshold as the red line, the measurable objective as the green line, and the 3 red dots that go up are the 5-year interim milestones. So again, that previous slide, you can sort of look at the whole basin at once, but then you can go check Appendix D for 3 of these hydrographs in greater detail. So let's go forward again. So this one is up, you can see down in that little map inset in the bottom there. This is up in the upper left northwest corner of the basin, 19F4. The next, this one's down near the, in between El Caro and Lyons area. Some of these recover a little faster than others, but this only goes through 23, so it doesn't really carry through to present day. Keep in mind, this goes through last September. And when I was while it's on my mind, you had 29 inches of rain in water year 2023. In this water year, which isn't reflected in this report, you already have like 26, so it's another wet year. Anyway, so this is another hydrograph that is an RMS well, so it's got the sustainable management criteria listed on the right. I will tell you that we spent a pretty inordinate amount of time getting these things set up so that Bob's staff could generate these next year for the annual report. I know that you guys were all a little bit concerned with the cost of the annual reports, so we tried to set it up as much as possible so that the district staff could generate these things, without our input next year. Next, this is one up on Rincon Creek. There's no sustainable management criteria to show here, but you can see that over the past drought of the past 10 years, this one had gone lower than had been previously, and now with that creek flowing again, at least seasonally, it's popped back up to the previous level. So again, I'm just showing 3 of these. There's 25 more of these in Appendix D, so you can review them at your leisure. But we'll go next. Okay, there's also 6 water level maps in the report. We do spring and fall. I'm just going to show you real quickly the fall ones because those are the ones we use for the change in water level calculations and the change in storage. So this fall 2021, let's just go next. I know that you'd have to inspect the numbers to really get it, but you'll get the punchline here in just a second. Go to the next one. Water levels came up in the fall of 2023 after it rained. Now these next 3 are where we really present what this data means. Let's go to the next one. So this is the change in groundwater elevation, for each water year. So this one starts in fall 2020, which was the last year that we presented data for in the GSP, and through 2021. Again, that was the 4.9 inches of rain year. It was a critically dry year. Water levels declined over that period, up to 15 or more feet. Next. This is from 2021 to 2022. It was another dry year, but a little more rain than the year before, so there's no reds showing up in these. Things sort of stopped declining so rapidly, but it was still reflected dry conditions. And then the next one, where we had 29 inches of rain, there's no red in this graph. That blue represents up to 30 feet of water level recovery. So again, I'm not telling anything you don't know. It rained, the water levels came back up. Hopefully we're out of that. If you look at the long-term records in this part of the country, in this part of the state, you get these long periods of drought generally followed by long periods of wet weather. So no guarantees, but hopefully those critical years are in the past for a while and we've entered into a relatively wetter period. But this year's, shows that water levels recovered quite significantly in response to the rain and the lack of pumping. Okay. We calculated for each one of those water years the change of groundwater and storage. To refresh your memory, the methodology for this is we basically take those water level contour maps, subtract them from one another, and then apply a standard storativity value on the order of like 0.12, I believe. In that critical year of 2021, there was a drop of groundwater and storage of approximately 7,700 acre feet. In 2022, again, dry, but not as dry. It dropped again nearly 1,200 feet. And then with the wet weather in 2023, came back, there was an increase of storage from the previous year of over 12,000 acre feet of groundwater and storage. Next. Okay, and then part of the annual report is just a report of the amount of water use in the basin, starting with groundwater pumping. These are the pumping estimates that were generally provided by the district. You know, started at 5,840 in the dry year, 6,900 the next year, and then that last wet year it dropped down to 4,300. Next shows surface water deliveries and surface water use between Kachuma and State Water and the exchange with San Ynez ID1. So the total surface water use was 4,000 in that first critical year and approximately 2,300 in both 2022 and 2023. So the total water use in the basin was about over 9,000 acre feet per year, surface water and groundwater in the first two dry years, and then dropped down to about 6,600 acre feet a year in 2023 when it rained. Okay, now we also present the water quality graphs for not just the RMS wells, but all wells. This again is the point is that it's sort of like the hydrographs. We present this so that you can look at the water quality data for, basin-wide for the representative monitoring site wells. But let's go to the next one. But in Appendix E of the report, you'll find 28 of these water quality graphs. So again, they're set up the same way with the little map inset showing the location. These are boron, nitrate, chloride, and TDS. Those are sampled in all of these wells. Again, they don't all have sustainable management criteria posted because they aren't all RMS wells. But after you look at the basin-wide one to get sort of the big picture, you can drill down as much as you want for the other 28 wells. So, you guys, a lot of these have got data going back to 2000 when AB 3030 started, so there's a really good period of record. This is another one up there near the northern central part of the basin. And again, so this one's got the minimum threshold shown, and then the next one is one that's not an RMS well, so there's no minimum thresholds displayed. This is over near Arroyo Paradon, where it's well documented that the water quality is poorer quality than in most other parts of the basin. So this just shows the trends over the past 20 years. We talk about the data from the 3 Sentinel wells. These are the 3 wells in the 3 different zones. The A zone's about 300. The screen is approximately 300 feet deep. You can see on the top part of that graph, there's never been any significant amounts of chloride or salinity detected in this well. Again, this graph stops in water year 2023. I was just looking at the most recent data. All of these wells now have water levels above sea level, which is that dashed blue line. So just so you know going forward. All right, so that's the A zone, so there has never been an issue there. The B zone, the screen is approximately 850 feet deep. Water levels go up and down with pumping in the area. Those chloride and salinity data that's presented on the top there, we're going to have to watch those for another couple of years before we can even hazard a guess, I think, as to why those are jumping all over the place the way they are, because it's obviously not a trend that remains constant with time or seems to be reflected in pumping. But in any event, the B zone had an excursion of higher salinity for the past couple of years or past couple of quarters, and now it's back down. Next.
Can I ask a question about
Sure.
that slide?
Yeah.
Could that possibly be by some local pumping activity, just right in the area of the marsh?
Well,
or-
with water levels, sure. But
As far as the chlorides.
with the chlorides, it could be. It's just hard to tell. Maybe there's a preferential path from, some deeper brackish zone that's coming up. It's just hard to tell.
Well, nice, it's back down.
Yeah, like to see that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and this is the C zone well. The screen on this one's about 1,050 feet below land surface, and again, this is the one that's creating the concern about seawater intrusion. It's been going up steadily over the past 5 years. With the recent rains, again, the water levels have come up above sea level, but there's no quick recovery of these chlorides to go back down. We'll just have to keep checking them out every quarter for the next few years and see what happens if it keeps raining. The other discussion at the end, again, there wasn't first of all, subsidence is one of the water, sustainability criteria. We did look at the INSAR data provided by DWR. There's no subsidence in this basin. It's not an issue, so I don't want to dwell on it, but we did look at it. And then progress towards sustainability, that the section at the end that we discussed, we discussed that the El Caro Park monitoring well installation project was completed. So we've got now 3 more A, B, and C zone monitoring wells. We did mention that the CAP project funding was, at the time we wrote it, was in peril, and I'm sure you guys know what's going on there. But that project was highlighted, pretty prominently in the GSP. So we mentioned that the funding was, uncertain, and that, we'll see what's going to happen next year. It's still a significant project. This was the first annual report that was submitted, so we have 3 water years worth of data here. There's a net positive, a net gain of groundwater and storage over these 3 years. Again, so between the water year 2023 and the one we're in now, where we're already well over the average annual rainfall. No guarantees, but hopefully we're out of that unpleasantness for the past 10 years. So the report was delivered and uploaded by the deadline on April 1st, and quite shockingly got a almost immediate response that they had received it, because we've been turning these things up in Paso Robles for 5 years and never got word one about any of them. But I guess they're catching up now, so they're starting to read the things that are coming in on the annual reports. So any questions on that? So, I look at this as sort of a catch-up report, so now we're up to the present day, where we had like a 3-year gap at the end of the GSP. It's kind of just a data transmittal report, so now, now we're up to the present day. Any questions? Yes?
So, which page was that? Oh, on the change in groundwater storage, 21, 22, 23. So, does it look like we might add another 12,000 acre feet? So
It's certainly going to add. I don't know.
And we're kind of down by 40,000 acre feet.
Right.
Kind of just across the board. And so now maybe we're up half of that?
Maybe.
That would be nice.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, then we move on to item number 5B, consider a draft CSA cost of service study for the fiscal year 2025, 2026. For information, Bob and Scott wanted to speak after that. So.
Yeah, so, on June 3rd, I believe, let's see, June 4th, we plan to have the public hearing for the adoption of the, fee for fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26. And so, we prepared a cost of service study, it's still in draft, but, this presentation will be, sort of a summary of that report, and that report will get posted this week on the website once it's finalized. You have a draft copy in your board packet if you have any questions about that, but I'm going to have Danielle Rose present the summary of the cost of service study. So with that, I think Danielle's online.
Yep, I'm here, Bob.
Yeah, just a point of order. The last item was has a for action on it, but I don't think we need to take action. It's unless you want to receive and file it, I don't think we need to take action on it.
Adjourn the meeting.
So do you want to file a Bob or not?
No, I think unless you think it's necessary, I don't think it's necessary.
Well, I'd just like to make a motion to file it and then we're done. I mean,
Okay, then that's fine too.
Sorry, Shirley, on item number 5,
I think, yeah, 5B, right?
no, 5A.
Never mind. 5B, I have a question.
Can we have a motion to file 5A, please?
Ally makes a motion to file 5A.
Second.
We got a motion, a second. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Johnson?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Balch?
Aye.
And Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, so Bob, we move to 5B. Shirley, you want to ask the question now or later?
Yeah, the cost of, I guess we'll just present it, and then when we get to the page, I'll ask a question.
Thank you. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, I'm going to have Danielle do the presentation. So.
All right. Good evening. I'm here tonight to present to you about the draft cost of service study for the proposed fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 2026 Carpinteria Groundwater Sustainability Agency fees. The proposed fees for the next 2 fiscal years are based on estimated groundwater extraction, which differs from the method used for the current and previous fiscal year. The past 2 years, the fee has been assessed based on total property acreage within the basin. Next slide. The goals and the objectives for the cost of service study are to thoroughly explain the methods used in this new approach so that they are repeatable and understandable, describe the number of properties impacted, and by doing so, also compare this to the number of properties impacted in the approach used in fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24. Describe the timeline of the extraction estimate calculations when property owners were mailed their properties calculations and their extraction estimate that is intended for use in the proposed approach for fiscal year 2025. I'll also be providing an overview of the public outreach channels that were used and the public engagement that has been involved as property owners have contacted the GSA with questions. And we'll also outline the potential scenarios where estimated extractions were removed based on input and data provided from property owners, or where estimated extractions were reduced after supplemental data was provided. Next. So I wanted to provide a brief summary of the history of how the CGSA fees were calculated over the past 2 fiscal years for context and a reminder for those who may be watching as we discuss the proposed new approach. So with the formation of the GSA in 2020, loans were obtained from CVWD for 2020, 2021, and 2022. In 2022, the GSA hired consultants to help determine the most equitable and non-administratively burdensome way to access the CGS to assess the CGSA fee to generate revenue. And they analyzed 6 different potential strategies, which were charging a flat rate to all parcels, charging a flat charge to all non-de minimis parcels, implementing a per parcel fee based on total acreage, which is what was ultimately chosen, per parcel fee based on total irrigated acreage, developing a fee based on estimated gross groundwater extraction, which is what we are proposing to move forward with fiscal year 25 and 26, or developing a fee based on estimated net groundwater extraction. So in 2022, it was determined that using the total acreage approach was the preferred approach at that time. And for each of these, the advantages and disadvantages were noted, as well as the various data requirements and time constraints. So for fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24, the total fiscal year budget was just divided by the total acreage intersecting the groundwater basin boundary. And these fees were assessed using the corresponding county tax rolls. Next. This is a very common approach. Many GSAs, including the adjacent Montecito Groundwater Sustainability Agency, use these per acre fees, as well as some agencies in the Central Valley in Northern California. The McMullen area GSA in Fresno, the Venus Subbasin GSA up in Sacramento Valley are just a few of these GSAs. I mention this just to emphasize that the approach that we have been using is still a widely used approach. Next slide. This is a visual showing who was impacted and the proportional impact. You can see here the blue boundary is the groundwater basin boundary. All of the green parcels are parcels that were entirely within the groundwater basin, and those shown in yellow were only partially within the boundary. For all properties shown in green, the county stated acreage was used and multiplied by the particular per acre fee for that year. So if the county stated that your parcel was 1 acre, you paid $48 in fiscal year 23 and $68 in fiscal year 24. For those parcels shown in yellow, the boundary was used as essentially a cookie cutter, and whatever was within the basin is the only acreage that you were charged for. So for instance, if you had a 20-acre parcel and only 5 acres were within, you just took your 5 acres and multiplied it by the per acre fee, and that is what was assessed to your property. Next slide. But after implementing these fees for the past 2 fiscal years, we have received a lot of feedback, both from property owners themselves, in addition to feedback from members of the Carpinteria Groundwater Sustainability Plan Advisory Committee, that this method did not feel equitable and that large properties were carrying a disproportionate amount of the financial cost of the CGSA, regardless of how much groundwater they were or were not using. And one common piece of feedback, as shown here, was that not all acreage on a particular property was irrigated or even potentially irrigable. Many areas had steep slopes that were not easily farmed. In other cases, large areas of the properties were within riparian corridors, or some had restrictions based on conservation easements. So the shapes shown on these side are actual parcel boundaries from within our area. You can see here that these parcels are comprised of mostly oak woodlands and native vegetation and are not fully planted or irrigated. But using the current fiscal year 24 and previous fiscal year 25 approach, these owners were charged for the entire acreage of their parcel within the basin. Next slide. We also had a number of residential customers that were confused because they were paying fees for this newer groundwater agency that they were not familiar with. They were not accessing groundwater directly from within their property. For example, we had some owners of townhouses or condos in Carpinteria city limits with only shared HOA outdoor living space. They had no intentions of accessing the groundwater beneath their property. These homeowners were benefiting from groundwater, but indirectly through their monthly CVWD bill, as they received a blended surface water and groundwater at their tap. Although most of their individual CGSA fees were under $50 for both fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24, when you take several thousand small residential parcels and charge them at the $48 or $68 per acre fee, it did add up to several tens of thousands of dollars when combined. Next. But overwhelmingly not from just residential and commercial property owners, but from feedback from within the agricultural community, people expressed that the pumpers should pay and that they should pay in proportion to the amount of groundwater that they actually extract out of the ground. This way, those with private wells extracting from the groundwater basin, those who will ultimately benefit from the groundwater monitoring performed through the implementation of the GSP, will be contributing to the programs that they'll receive direct benefit from. Next slide. Unfortunately, the missing information that was needed to move to direct meter charges for groundwater pumping was the meters themselves. We have seen from our well monitoring program that many of the wells in the basin do not have meters. It was not required or a standard at the time that they were drilled. We also mailed out a paper questionnaire survey to property owners in 2022 and requested information such as whether the well was active, whether it had a meter, whether the meter was read, and most of the feedback that we received mentioned that the well is active, it has no meter at all, it never has. They have a meter and use it to record regular reads, which some did indicate, and they've shared with us their meticulous logs that they keep, or they do have a meter, but it's only referenced to see how much they are pushing out of the well while they're irrigating, and they just monitor the gallons per minute. Even if there were meters on all wells at this time, there are many factors that would need to be considered, such as meter calibration. Next. In the absence of well meters and with the community's desire to move to a pumping-based approach, the crop-based approach is the preferred method. The Carpinteria Valley Water District has used similar methods to estimate private groundwater in the Carpinteria groundwater basin over time. In our past Assembly Bill 3030 annual groundwater reports reference estimated private well use over the years. One thing to note about the crop-based approach that I will be explaining this evening is that it is done in a trailing year. So fiscal year 2025's approach is proposed to be based on fiscal year 2022 data, as summer of 2022 is the latest aerial image that we have access to. 2024 will be the next aerial image flown, which will not be flown until the summer. So fiscal year 2023 is proposed to be used for fiscal 2026's fees and will also be based on that 2022 aerial imagery and crop coverage as well. Next. So in this approach, the first step is to obtain the newest aerial image. And what we do is we take the crop acreages from the previous aerial image. So this would have been 2020, make a copy of it, and then go through with the new image and modify any changes to the crop boundaries and perform site visits if there are new plantings that are uncertain from the aerial image. Then we need to go through and calculate the particular determining factor or crop factor for those crops within the basin. And this is done using known non-groundwater users' water application rates from their actual CBWD metered use. This gives us an acre feet per acre value that is the multiplier. So once we have all of the crop acreages calculated within the software, we are then able to multiply them by this crop factor to come up with a water demand for that particular crop on that property. And then for each of the crops on the property, the total demand for that crop is added to the other crops present to come up with a demand for the parcel. And then the CBWD metered use is subtracted, and the result is the estimated groundwater extraction value. Next. So this is just an overview of the crop data that was derived from the 2022 image. The green areas are avocados, orange covered nurseries, red is lawn and pasture. We've got yellow for lemons and oranges, pink for fruit, cherimoyas, and other fruit orchards. And the blue areas are field crops and row crops and open nursery areas. So this information isn't just used for the current cost of study, but it's also used for annual crop reporting to the Bureau of Reclamation. Next. For calculating the determining factors or crop factors, we have to go through and identify where there's primarily one type of crop grown, there's no private wells or known water sharing agreements on the property, and therefore the only water being delivered to the property is from the water meter. So once we narrow in on these properties, we pull their water use for the time period. For this analysis for 25, it's based on fiscal year 22. For 26, it's based on fiscal year 23. Convert from billing units to acre feet, and then just divide this by the amount of acres of that particular crop on the parcel. We have a list of properties that are used for each crop types that are growing the same crop, and then we use z-tests to remove outliers to arrive at an average that is not impacted by extremes on either end. And then we typically are able to reference the same properties each year unless a new well is drilled or new well sharing agreements are established. Next. This table summarizes the crop factors for fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23. These values are shown in acre feet per acre. So in fiscal year 2022, if you had an acre of avocados, it is assumed that in order to sustain that 1 acre of avocados, 2.63 acre feet would need to be applied. You can see at the bottom, the precipitation data is listed for these fiscal years. You can see we received about a third of the precipitation in fiscal year 2022 when compared to fiscal year 2023. And you can also see that the crop factors decrease almost across the board from the fiscal year 2022 to fiscal year 2023 values. Next. As with all models, there are some data limitations that are recognized. One of which is that there are a limited number of crops that we can use as control properties that do not have wells or well sharing agreements. There are also several other crops that are not represented in the previous table. So historically, cherimoyas have been used as a proxy for other fruit trees. We also use the crop factor for open nurseries and apply it to the field crops. We recognize that because this is a model that the data won't match the exact extraction for each property, which is why we have allowed for property owners to come and provide supplemental information for potential adjustments, which I will discuss later in the presentation. Next. This is an example on an avocado property. This is an older slide using water year data for 2021. However, it's the same general approach. The primary crop here and the only crop is avocado. So we're able to take the avocado acreage, we multiply it by the crop factor for that particular year in order to obtain the demand for that property. And then this is using fictional water use data. If the customer were to have used 30 acre feet of water, we subtract that from the demand for that crop and then arrive at that 38.62 acre feet, which would be assumed to be the estimated extraction from a private well or other water source. Next. This example is for a property with a mixture of crops. So you're able to take the acres of each of the different crop types, multiply them by their corresponding crop factor, and then the total demand is summarized for the 5 different crops, subtract the metered use, and arrive at the estimated extraction value. Next. There are various crop data sources. There are several data sets online provided by DWR for various water years. We primarily rely on aerial photos, our GIS analysis. We do have a good deal of institutional knowledge. We're regularly visiting properties to access wells for sampling, water meters, and then also have additional insight through development review when people apply for permits. There was also the opportunity for community feedback and corrections to be made as we direct mailed property owners their estimated extractions along with the map showing the crop coverages that were used. Next. This is an example of what property owners received. We mailed out a letter and a table printed on the backside of the letter showing their properties calculations. These were sent in September and October of 2023, and the letter requested that property owners reach out to us by the end of the calendar year, so end of December 2023, with supplemental data or requests for revisions if they had information stating that this did not align with true extraction for the time period. Next. We also published a few articles in the Coastal Boone News, one of which was in November of 2023 after the letters went out, encouraging folks to reach out if they believed that they should have received a letter. We happily provided them via email if they did not get the communication for their particular property. And then again, we reached out with updates in February of 2024. Next. There were several potential ways in which property owners could provide data to either have their estimated extraction reduced or removed. There are several properties, about 30 or so, that overlap the basin in Ventura County, and we do not currently have access or regular access to Casitas Municipal Water District water bills. So those property owners that didn't have any metered water subtracted had very high estimated extraction, and they were either able to adjust them by providing bills or demonstrate that they received adequate water from Casitas for their particular crops. Same with Rincon Road and Waterworks, private purveyor on that side of the basin. There are instances where there was a known well on a property, however, it was perhaps inactive during that time period. So property owners provided their Edison bill showing that the pump was not used during the fiscal year 2022 timeframe. We spoke with some property managers who had defined irrigation schedules for the time period with known hours and gallons applied per minute, per hour, or they knew the emitter, the amount that was used per emitter per tree, and they had the number of trees within those particular blocks. So several different ways in which people came to us and started a discussion. The detailed logs of their meter reads. We had some people go through calibration processes, and then we performed several site visits to inactive wells, gained some GPS points on wells to update our map. So it's been a data gathering process, and we've learned a lot of information by interacting with private property owners. Next. There are many benefits to the proposed approach. As previously mentioned, we've gained a lot of insight regarding well sharing, well status. We've been able to update our records and knowledge of how many wells have meters, don't have meters, whether wells are inactive and intended for future use, or whether they do not intend on using them and they're an abandoned well on the property. And then the site visits helped us to get a better understanding of how many wells are actively being used, if in the future a metering program is something that may be of interest. Next. And within this model, it's important to note that CVWD pays their fair share. So the water district has 3 wells within production, and the metered use for fiscal year 2022 and 23 are incorporated into these fees. So CVWD is charged for the extraction at the same rate as private property owners. So in this way, those residential, commercial, hospitality customers that were charged per acre fee historically will still be contributing to the groundwater agency through their monthly water bills. Next. This is an overview looking at fiscal year 2025 and how the potential CGSA fee was derived for that year. It shows you the total number of properties in each county, the estimated acre feet of groundwater pumped, and then the total acre feet for that particular year. However, when the fee was calculated for fiscal year 2026. We noticed that there was a large jump. So fiscal year 25 amounted to about $65 per acre foot of water. On the next slide, we went through the same process. And you can see that because it was a much wetter year, there was more precipitation, there was less estimated private pumping, less district pumping as we were pulling from more surface water supplies. And so the second year, the fee jumps to approximately $101 per acre feet. So if you go to the next slide, you looked into meeting in the middle. So looking at the total budget over 2 fiscal years, the 985, and then dividing it by the total acre feet estimated to be pumped across 2 fiscal years. And that's how we arrived at the proposed $79 acre foot charge across the 2 fiscal years. Next.
This is the question I had on these slides, Case?
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. This is a question I had on these the slides, both the 25 and 26. District pumping, and maybe I'm missing something, because I compared it with the other report that we have in this packet on the report of the total district pumping. And it seems like these figures are like 500 acre feet over or so, because, and maybe Bob can explain this, because the other one is on page 20 of our packet, and it's the estimated groundwater years, the report that we use, and the district is 888 acre feet, 20, 766 acre feet, 21, 2,117 in 22, that was a big year, and then 2023 is 970. So on the fee, we have almost 2,000 acre feet and over 2,000 for 25. And 26, it's 1,200 acre feet. So are those approximate, or are they supposed to jive, or? In any case, it doesn't look like the district is underbilling itself at all for the amount of pumping that it does. But, do you have any comments
I'm sorry,
on that?
Director Johnson, which page of the agenda are you getting those numbers off of?
Okay, I'm looking at page 20 of the packet,
Okay.
the groundwater extraction report. And then if you look, do I have this right?
It may be because my table's not labeled clearly, but this is all based on fiscal year 2022 and 23. So we're doing it in a previous year.
Right, okay, 22 and 23, those are 2 big years, okay. Well, thank you, that kind of does explain it then.
I think you're still right.
But I still think, yeah, we're not underbilling the district at all. I think, but I think it's fair, based on these figures.
So Danielle, so every year we pick up a new year and we drop off the 2 years back. So the water year runs from what month to what month?
This is using fiscal year, so July 1 through June 30th of the following year. So
Right.
fiscal year 22 is based on July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022.
Right, so
Right.
if a farmer puts in a meter and he can document what his water use was from July through June, when does the district file with the county as far as the assessment? Isn't that happen at the end of June also?
It'd be August.
August?
Mid-August,
Okay, fine, then there's no problem.
I think.
Well, remembering these are trailing numbers. These are previous year numbers, so we're filing, for example, this year, but we're using 2022 and 2023 years to.
Got it, so we're a year ahead, so to be accurate, we have plenty of time. Okay, that was my question.
Yeah, and as far as the I guess apparent conflict that is in the annual report documentation, I think these are probably water years that are shown on packet page 20. You can see in water year, yeah, it says water year 2022 is 2000. So that corresponds roughly with the 1977.
And the other's a fiscal year, yeah.
Yeah.
That always makes things really simple.
And then the 900 corresponds with the 1291. There, one's a fiscal year, one's a water year.
Okay.
Okay,
Any more
thank you.
questions? Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, I think there was just one more slide, and it showed a comparison between the current approach and the proposed approach of the total number of properties impacted by the fee. So you can see using the total acreage-based approach in 2024, there were almost 5,000 parcels that had fees applied, and then looking ahead at the proposed approach, we are down to 403.91. And then I put a note here after presenting this on Monday. I realized that I didn't clarify that these numbers don't jive with the previous tables. The previous tables take into consideration the adjustments that have been made since initially sending out letters to property owners. So the fees were derived with all of the modifications taken into consideration at that time. And that's the end. If there's any other questions or comments.
I have
Shirley, go
one
ahead.
more question. Can you summarize what the difference is between the proposed method and the previous method?
So the previous method was the example I showed early on in the presentation, where the groundwater basin was basically used as a cookie cutter, and in the software, all parcels within that shape were charged a per acre fee. So whatever your acreage was in the groundwater basin overlying it within, you were charged based on that fee. So that includes all parcels within. And then the proposed approach described is moving to estimated pumping. So based on estimated groundwater use for that particular period. So moving from per acre, regardless of whether you have a well or not, to per acre foot estimated to be pulled from the ground.
Okay, thank you. That's very understandable. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, in fiscal year 26, we lose 9 parcels. Is that something that, is there a reason for that?
I believe it's because the crop factors dropped significantly between the years due to the increase in precipitation. So there are parcels that would have dropped below the threshold for CGSA charges to be assessed.
Okay. And then am I right that the greenhouse crop factor is uniform across any crop within a greenhouse?
Correct. That is a data limitation. It's consistent for all covered nursery properties.
And then I guess my only other question that might be outside of this a little bit is what happens on property ownership change where use is significantly modified and we're operating on a 2-year trailing fee? Is there some mitigation for that? Is there consideration on that?
Bob, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, so that's why we have a review period. As you know, we put together a review period so that if someone is in that situation, they can approach us and say, we didn't own the property. We also have an appeal or a variance process once we do adopt the fee. So even after we adopt the fee, someone can come back and say, we didn't know all this was going on. We just realized it, and now we want to get a variance because we didn't own the property.
Thanks.
Can I ask a question
Sure, go
pursuant
ahead,
to that
Shirley.
one? Because we're going through this with the DWR. Do we have, how far back can we go for any discrepancies? Just the previous year or 5 years or, in other words, if, oh, yes, we overbilled you, what's the time limit?
Typically, there's a I forget it's the government Fees Act, I believe, which limits arrears recovery to 1 year.
So that's what our documents say, 1 year?
Well, when we do adopt the resolution, it will have a limitation on it, so it'll give it, a deadline. I think it's typically, I think it was 30, last time it was 30 days or 60 days after the payment of the fee.
Yeah, there is a time limit from when they can file a claim or a dispute, but I'm just asking, what is the period of time over which that claim can cover, like a year or two before?
No, it's typically limited to a year under the Government Claims Act, but I think in our resolution, it actually says 60 days. So if 60 days passes after the fee has been paid and there's no claim, then we typically don't go back to that payment.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Case just had one
Go ahead,
question.
sir. Polly.
Danielle, it's Polly. Excellent presentation. Bob, I know that we've come a long way with everything that, all the information and our outreach and everything else. We did talk about meters, though, and I know in the report it said, of course, that is a ways to go, but I was just wondering if there was any update on that. Is it kind of in the works? And I know it's going to take some time, but is there?
Yeah,
an update?
we're in the data collecting
Okay.
process right now. We're reaching out to all of the GSAs and GMAs and adjudicated basins that have meter programs, just to understand, what the things are that are important, how they got started, who pays for them, how long it took them to implement, all
Right.
those things.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
So Bob, just a question, and maybe it is premature. The county offers a $500 per well grant, a grant of $500, and possibly we might be considering the GSA putting up some money if the private pumper wants to connect the well to the ion water system that the district is using. But obviously, we're really down to, 40 days before the next water year starts. So are we will we be able to get any information to the pumpers, or because basically they're gonna lose a year if they don't get it done in the next 40 days?
Well, I mean, I don't think that we'll have a metering program in place before we adopt the fee. I don't think that's realistic. At any time, a well user can install a meter and provide the data to us in lieu of our estimations.
Okay, now, yeah, I think it's becoming clear that the pumpers that disagree with the estimates, all they gotta do is install the meter, and then they can prove what they're using, so that's fair, okay. Anything else?
Thank you.
Scott, you wanna?
Scott Vanderkar. And I would also like to thank Danielle and Bob. As well done on the presentation. A question, Case, you mentioned in the discussion about notifying the county with regard to the charge. My understanding is at some point, the billing will come directly from the GSA and it won't be going through the property tax system. Was your comment with regard to the property tax bill or something else that I'm not aware of?
No, I was talking about the property tax bill, but Bob can maybe explain that better?
Yeah, no, there was no plan to move away from using the tax assessor's office to collect the fee. And that's largely because we don't have an enforcement mechanism like the county tax assessors does. So if we were to try to direct bill, we really don't have, there's not much we can do if someone just says we're not paying.
Okay, that makes sense. I had misunderstood at a previous meeting. Director Johnson had made a comment when David O'Rourke was up here about the information as to how the basin is doing, and you'd done some calculating on your own. I was wondering if at some point in time we could get a state of the basin report with our meetings, once a quarter or something. I have neighbors and fellow growers asking me, how's the rain affecting the basin? What's going on? And I'm not sure how the district monitors that, but it would be nice to have some guidance of, are we doing better or worse going forward? So just a thought and suggestion. Main comment to the discussion is in support of this idea for meters. There just are still, even as much as we try to solve the problem of how much water is coming out, a meter is really the only way to do it. There are going to be more efficient irrigation systems, people who are irrigating more or less, older trees, younger trees, all these reasons. So I encourage you to pursue that. And thanks for the comment of, pushing ahead on that. I'll be real interested about what kind of a turnout we have on June 4th, the public hearing. It's, from my point of view, it seems as though there's still a lot of ignorance and apathy out, and I don't mean ignorance in a bad way, really, just I don't think people really know what's going on. And to the question of how will this change for the growers who have been paying based on total acreage of the parcel versus what comes out. I did a quick calculation before I came to the meeting on just one property. It's a 20-acre parcel. According to the mapping that Bob did, which I think is accurate. I don't know about how accurate the acre feet per acre is, because that's an assumption. But as far as how many acres are planted, 17 acres of that 20 acres is planted. The property tax bill for 2024, or the one that was just paid, the GSA fee was $1,378. Under this new plan, the bill will be $4,013. So, not saying that's my problem, but that's an example of how this is going to change, and that's why I'm just wondering on June 4th, have people really put numbers to this and figured out, what it's really, how much it's going to cost, and how much it's going to change. I'm real curious to see, in this case, it's more than twice as much, significantly more than twice as much on this property. I'm thinking other properties where there's less acreage planted, it'll offset the other way. The total amount of money going towards the budget, that will be an interesting total with this significant change in how it's calculated. And my other comment to the June 4th meeting is, it doesn't seem fair that all the protests have to be in by June 4th when the public hearing meeting is June 4th, when I hope that my colleagues in the ag industry are going to learn what's going on here. It is what it is, and I know what's going on as best as I've been able to understand it. But I do question that deadline, the same day as the meeting, when I think the information is going to be given out. My last comment is that my colleague from the advisory committee, Alan Seucher, is here. He was not able to get here in time for the public comment period, and I don't know, but he may have something he'd like to comment on while we're still on the GSA meeting format.
No, you're welcome to share your thoughts, Alan. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Actually, Bob, do you want to comment on Scott's question about
Yeah, I'll just make a quick clarification that we accept, petition votes right up till the end of the public hearing, and that's because we have to make a decision. And of course, if we get enough protest votes, then we aren't able to move forward with the change in the fee structure. So we really can't do it any other way but to do a public hearing and then hold a vote, because that really is kind of the final tally of all of the protest votes.
Right, but Bob, I believe every private pumper has been notified several months ago what their estimate will be. So it sounds to me, or you told me, you've had several pumpers that came in and showed that our numbers was wrong, and you have adjusted those. So, Scott, I don't think we're waiting to the last minute. Everybody had about 90 days notice to respond, and if they didn't think it was fair, then either step up and prove it, or. And I agree with Shirley also. I think the district itself, I looked at those numbers also, and the district is also paying their fair share. It's not like the district is skating by. I mean, everybody is paying their fair share, but whoever disagrees then needs to step up and prove it. So it is.
Thank you.
Alan, go for it.
Great. Well, thank you very much. It's good to see you all. I'm here. I was here about 6 months ago before the plan was adopted, sent forward to the state. At that time, I was talking about some recharge planning for the groundwater recharge. Since then, I've engaged with some colleagues in the Pacific Northwest on how they would go about doing that kind of recharge planning in the basin on a technical basis. And they put together a proposal, which is great, but as they were developing the proposal, it became pretty clear that most all the actions that we take to improve the recharge situation would be in-stream actions that would also have effect on the steelhead. And so it became a question of how would those actions affect steelhead, and taking that a step further, how could we improve steelhead habitat in stream while also improving groundwater recharge processes? And so they modified the proposal somewhat to be a steelhead habitat assessment as well as a groundwater recharge assessment. And we're putting the finishing touches on kind of the technical pieces of that. And be then bringing that here and bringing that to steelhead fisheries experts and other agencies with interest, and hoping to develop some partnerships on moving into implementation. So just wanted to give that update, and more to come on that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Looking forward to it.
Can I add to that?
Go for it.
Yep, this is, I always look for information in the news from local water agencies, and I just sent this email. I found, I sent it out today. Oxnard won the statewide award for the most recharge and it's a little bit of a small basin, but, so, if you go to Oxnard and see what the heck they're doing, I mean, I think that's good news. Thank you.
Yeah, that was United Water, which, their purpose is to replenish groundwater.
Thank you. Any other comments on that? I got the email that Shirley sent from United Water, but obviously they've spent a lot more money and they are dealing with the fish over there better than we are over here. So, but no, recharge, I believe, I know it's part of our GSA, so we'll get there, but obviously any information you can share is welcome and appreciated. So. All right. We go on to item number 6A, the financials. Norma?
They're in your packet for information. Yeah.
Any questions?
Yeah, if there's any questions.
If there's no questions, then I'm going to adjourn this meeting, and then we'll move back to the regular meeting of the Carpinteria Valley Water District. Okay, item number 9, new business. Consider revised rules and regulations for information, General Manager Bob, and a presentation by Mesa.
Yeah, this is just kind of a cleanup. We had some items that didn't make it in the last rules and regulations. And so Mason will just kind of go over those, and then we'll come back at a later date for adoption.
Evening, everyone. So yeah, we do rules and regulations update annually. So the district's existing rules and regulations, obviously, if there are specific items that need to be addressed throughout the year, those might be edited and incorporated. But annually, at the end of the fiscal year, we comprehensively review the rules and regulations and look for updates. So there's a memo in your packet, and then you should have a red line version too, which shows only the specific rules that are being updated, so not the entirety of the rules and regulations packet. And I won't go through every single item. I'll just summarize. There's sort of 3 themes with what is going on. So the first one is that we noticed in the text of the rules and regulations, there are many instances where there is a fee specified, which is then repeated in Appendix C. And the purpose of Appendix C is to summarize all of the fees in one place. Not the rates and charges on a customer's bill, but other fees implemented by the district for various reasons. And we found that it created a version control problem when we had to continually update multiple instances of the same fee in multiple locations throughout the document. So we just went through and did a cleanup effort and moved all instances of fees like that to Appendix C and removed them from the text of the document and just said, see Appendix C or something to that effect. So you'll see a lot of red line changes regarding that. Another thing we did was we made a couple of clarity adjustments to existing language. So the account class definitions, there was just some ambiguity there based on the wording of what types of businesses or uses could qualify for different account classes. And so we edited the language there so it was a little bit clearer. We added a sentence about compliant with the Government Claims Act, and then we also added a sentence about billing customers for tampering fees. So these were sort of just minor language updates, sort of one sentence things where we just wanted to make sure that it was clear within the text of the rules and regs what the intent of the district was, but they're not new ideas or comprehensive changes to those rules. The last type of update to mention is there are annual updates we do, which are captured in the rules and regulations. So Appendix A, for example, has the updated rates and charges for the next fiscal year. These are rates and charges that were already adopted. We're just updating the text of the rules and regulations to reflect the current year's numbers. So these will be fiscal year 25 that are in there now. Same thing with Appendix B and D, which are the capital cost recovery fee. So we have the methodology, which we recently reviewed for updating the capital cost recovery fee every year. So this is just applying that methodology for the annual update. So this is not proposing anything new. It's just implementing an existing procedure. So the updated numbers there reflect that. That is really, I think, what you need to know about the changes to the rules and regulations for the fiscal year update. If there are any questions.
Anyone? Go ahead, Shirley.
Yeah, I'm not understanding something. On page 14 of the packet, the Appendix A, page 51 to 55, it says updated tables reflects rate and changes adopted for fiscal year 25 on September 13, 1924.
Well, that should be 23.
Okay.
Is that the confusion? Yeah, that. Yes, you're right. That should be September 13th, 1923. That was when we updated the rates for the
That
3
made
years.
sense. I just
yes,
wanted
thank
to
you for
make sure.
catching that. Yeah.
And then there's something else in the body of it. What page was that when it deals, and I'm sure it's somewhere else, because I don't see in the rules and regulations where they have the master meter for 10 units or more. Or did we not, did we change our mind on that, or should that be?
So that would have been I believe we incorporated that previously. So I don't remember exactly what month we actually incorporated
Yeah,
it.
it was changed throughout the year and updated, so this only reflects proposed changes. So that was already done and completed, and the full set of rules and regs
Okay,
already
so
has
it wasn't under, because it's something about, meters required, and it doesn't say anything about the 10.
Yeah, no, I don't think that rule was included as one that has a current update. So it is in the current
It
text
is,
of the rules and
okay.
regulations. It's not being modified at this time.
Okay. All right, well, yeah, this is a lot of work. Okay, thank you, that's my question.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mesa.
Okay, thank you.
Then we move on to item number 9B, consider engaging M-Cube to update economic analysis for CAP in an amount not to exceed $15,200 for action. Bob? Did we lose Bob?
Sorry, I'm on mute.
Okay.
Lisa, can you advance the slide to the next PowerPoint slide? Or- no? All right, thank you. Yeah, so in 2022, the district hired M-Cubed, an economic consultant, to develop an economic model and analysis for the CAP project. This was a requirement of the USBR Title 16 grant application. The results of that, I think it's shown on the screen here, but the results of that are summarized here on the screen. The analysis showed that the CAP had a benefit to cost ratio of 2.86, which is what was needed at least to be a 2.5 for the Title 16 grant application. And so we met that bar. We in order to control costs on this, we didn't do some analyses. You can see the lines that are omitted. Those include groundwater recharge as a benefit, emergency response, avoidance, having to do with the South Coast conduit being out, and then deferred seawater intrusion. So none of those were analyzed. We're now looking at those, but we also need to update the numbers for the new cost of the project as well, or the new 50% design cost of the project, as well as some of the water supply costs have changed. And so we asked M-Cube to give us a proposal to update the overall model and analysis to give us a new benefit cost ratio. So this is, let's see, I think it's, let me see here. I'm sorry, I gotta switch between documents here. Yeah, so this is recommended by staff, not to exceed 15,200, and it's for action. I'll take any questions if you have any.
I've got some questions, I suppose. I guess first question is why, if we think we need to redo this because of potential changes in costs, are we better waiting till we're at 90% design and have a more accurate engineering estimate at least?
Yeah, I think, well, we believe that the costs are, within 20% at this point, so I don't know if that's gonna, if a change of 20% would affect the overall benefit ratio, but we could wait. Part of the reason why we want to do this is we want to be ready if the next round of Title 16 comes around, because we did apply for a second round of Title 16 funding, which was, I think, $9 million. So we wanted to have this ready.
Is there a, like, requirement on the currency or how current the report is for Title 16 grants?
It just has to be, it has to be accurate, or, within a reasonable accuracy. So because we had such a big change in the cost, we wanted to redo it so that we are relatively certain that it's accurate.
Okay, and then, so if we have to be, what, above a 2.5 on the benefit cost ratio for Title 16, we're not worried that we might not be there anymore?
We are, but that's one of the things that we didn't really do the analysis for the other benefits, like the groundwater recharge, seawater intrusion, and emergency preparedness. So we would add those in. I think that would keep us above the 2.5. As well as the cost of the deferred or avoided cost of water supplies has gone up as well. So it may offset itself. It may be the same or better.
Sure, I guess my only, hesitation is 15,000 seems like quite a big chunk of change to quantify 3 more things and I guess kind of modify some numbers. A lot of the heavy lift seems like it was already done pretty recently by MQ, so I guess I'm surprised at the numbers all. Thanks.
Anyone else?
I can see Casey's point, absolutely. I could also see trying to get a jump on it because of trying to go after new funding too. So I can understand the pros and cons.
Yeah, I think the original study was somewhere on the order of 55,000 or so. They have been updating a lot of the other projects, like Ventura, I know just went through an update on their econ analysis. So I'm assuming that this number is representative of what they believe it will take to update the model and analysis.
I guess one last clarifying question. So this is not required to pursue additional Title 16 grants, just could be beneficial in some way?
Yes, well, yeah, so it's not, they have the old analysis.
Right.
I'm not certain whether they will ask us if it's still accurate, but I think we might have a hard time saying, yes, it's accurate with such major changes in the cost of the project.
Thanks.
Yeah, personally, and I don't disagree with Casey, but, if we have a chance at another $9 million,
Right.
then the 15,000 is probably
Right.
Reasonable. That's where I'm at, so it's really up to the rest of the board.
No, I completely agree. I understand Casey's point, absolutely, so I could wait, but then when Bob said, well, this could help us in how we go after the next round, I'm for it.
So then I need a motion.
So I'll make a motion to support the new contract, not to exceed $15,200.
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Then we need a roll call, please.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Johnson?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Balch?
Nay.
And Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
The motion passes 4-1.
Then we move on to item number 9C. Consider engaging Woodard Curran to assist district for preparation of the USBR Water Management Plan. 5-year update in an amount not to exceed $18,050. This is for action, Bob.
Yeah, this is a report that is very similar to the urban water management plan that we just completed in, I think it was 2023. And it, as well as the urban water management plan, are required to have 5-year updates. This water management plan is specific to USBR water projects, which Kachuma is a USBR water project. And it's required of agencies that serve agriculture. And so the last time this plan was updated was 2015. The 2020 should have been updated, but the Bureau waived the deadline because of COVID. But now they're back and they're requiring us to do the update. The one change this year, which is good, is that the Bureau will allow us to do a crosswalk between our urban water management plan and the water management plan. So that will reduce the cost of this plan update significantly. But there are still elements of agriculture that are not covered in the urban water management plan, so we do have to update those sections, including the best management practices and compliance with those. We requested a, next slide. We requested a proposal from Woodard and Cran because Woodard and Cran prepared the 2020 Urban Water Management Plan update. And so they would do the crosswalk between that plan and the water management plan. Again, the urban water management plan, I think, was around 60,000 back in 2023. Woodard and Cran is estimating 18,000 to do the crosswalk and complete the other sections of the plan update having to do with ag best management practices. So staff recommends that we engage Woodard and Cran to assist our staff with completing the water management plan update in an amount not to exceed $18,050.
Any questions? Go ahead, Shirley.
Yeah, I have a question because the description of the background says this report is required of Central Valley Project water customers, and we don't have a drop of Central Water Valley Project unless you consider Lake, the reservoir that half of it's state water and half of it's federal water, and they've got a mix. But but Bob Reward explained it to be federal waters, but the feds built the plan, the dam, but is San Ynez River federal waters? Are you sure that we need to file this with them? It sounds like we do have to report to the state water because we're using the state water aqueduct system and the whole thing, and so we report to them. But the Central Valley Water Project are the ag people in the Central Valley, basically. And are you sure that we need to make this report to the feds?
Yes,
And also,
but-
do all the other Kachuma people have to make this report to the feds?
Yes, so the requirement is listed in two locations. It's part of the Reclamation Reform Act, which we are subject to as a Kachuma project participant.
Reclamation Reform Act, okay.
And then the second is in the master contract for the Kachuma project. Excuse me. So it's actually written into the master contract that we have to produce a water management plan. And to answer your question on do the other agencies have to do this, only agencies that serve agriculture have to do this. And that's Carpinteria Valley Water District, Goleta Water District, and San Ynez ID1 all have to produce a water management plan.
Only ag, okay. But not, Montecito doesn't have enough ag, right?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you for that explanation.
Any more questions? Then we need a motion.
Polly makes a motion to approve the contract with Woodward and Curran, not to exceed $18,050.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any more discussion? The roll call, please.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Johnson?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Balch?
Aye.
And Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Then we move on to item number 9D, consider bid for Santa Claus Lane pipeline relocation for action. Bob?
Yeah, Lisa, can you load the next slide? Thank you. Let's see here. So we've been working with the County of Santa Barbara Roads Department on the Santa Claus Lane road improvement project. And part of that project is relocating our water facilities so that we don't interfere with various parts of their project. And it's been going on for several years. We've been working with them, and We budgeted about $500,000 for the project back in, I want to say 2021, maybe 2020, 2021. Expecting the project to move forward rather quickly, but it didn't. And so it's been sort of delayed for one reason or another, and there's been some work done. They started a portion of the roundabout and finished that, and so we had to do a little bit of the pipe relocation, so we used about 200,000 of our $500,000 budget. And then we also had some design fees related to, coordinating and developing a plan and bid set so that we could bid the project. In April of this year, we let the project out for bid. We had a mandatory pre-bid meeting on site and 5 contractors attended. So we were encouraged that we were going to get a number of bids and that they would be competitive. Unfortunately, on April 30, the bid closing date, we only received 1 bid, and that was from Toro Enterprises. And of course, we got that bid, and we saw that the amount was 2.4 million, which is double what the engineer's estimate was of 1.1, 111% to be exact. We broke the project into phases before we bid it, just so we would have some flexibility. You can see phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 2, we had planned that we could have the option to just not do it because it was less critical. But unfortunately, even with the phasing, we're looking at almost 3 times the amount of money that we have to complete the project. We had planned in 2025 to raise more money or budget more money for the project, but this is beyond what we were expecting. So it's sort of an unfortunate thing. Part of it is that some of the restrictions that were placed on the work. For example, the county was requiring all work to be done at night, which adds quite a bit of money to the cost of the project, as well as the very tight window that the county was giving us to actually get the work done. I think contributed to the costs, and as well, costs have just gone up significantly over the last 3 years, as we've seen on other projects. So one of the things that we've considered is, we could rescope the project and rebid the project with, a reduced scope, as well as maybe bringing some of the work into the district and having our district crews actually do it. Things like relocating services and extending fire hydrants or relocating fire hydrants. Those are things within the capability of our crews, and we could possibly take those off of the table for the bid. We are negotiating with the county on reducing the scope to just areas where we're absolutely conflicting with their project. And so that's another thing that we need to resolve. So at this time, staff is just recommending that we reject all bids. We go back, revise the plans to reduce the scope in coordination with the county, and then either rebid it, or if we can do it all in-house, then we would do that.
Shirley?
Yeah, I have a kind of a question on the bidding process, or what your standard, because I'm glad you had the parties come out to the site and do a live, participation in that way. And I think there usually is a step in the process whereby we can submit, our bid request, and then some of the parties can review it and see if there's some technical detail, or sometimes just the way it's worded, they can't really respond effectively because, well, do you really need this in your bid documents? And then you might say, no, it's very technical, no, we can do it this way. So do we ever have a step like that we don't lose good
There's
people?
an addendum process, we call it the addendum process, where contractors either submit questions where we'll clarify, and if they're good questions or suggestions, then we will actually issue an addendum to all the bid holders so that they know that, hey, we want to clarify this, or we want to change this so that it's, more efficient. So yeah, that is part of the bid process. That's typically why we give it 30 days.
Oh, that's good that we don't just lose because of a technicality like that. And, well, I do hope that the county will work with us because I imagine, or Caltrans, I'm not sure, that the delay is due to their schedule. So I hope they won't be unreasonable about, working only at night or all the other restrictions. So
I'll move to reject all bids.
I move to reject all bids, but I'd like to say something. Bob, this has not exactly been a cakewalk for us since the whole thing started, and the county has made this difficult for us every step of the way. I remember we approved some money for it, and then you had to come back again. Again, it wasn't your fault. It wasn't the staff's fault. It was the county had to make another change. And so here we are again with a situation like this. So I agree with Matt. I'll second to reject all bids. But to Shirley's point, I would really sit down with the county because this is, they've made this difficult every step of the way for us. Thank you.
Bob, question, any idea how much doing this project at night adds to the overall cost? You have a ballpark? We're not going to hold you to it, just...
No, I don't actually. That wasn't a separate bid item, so they just, built that into their bid.
I know, but we're paying for that. And I'm assuming your negotiations with the county, are you asking them to carry part of it because they delayed it, or a part of the whole nighttime activity, or?
Yeah,
I mean,
we're pushing back on some of these things. For example, that nighttime work, we're basically telling them, no, there's no reason for us to do it at night.
There is a line item 18 that identifies some costs related to nighttime work, but
Oh, okay.
but I'm sure there's...
46,000.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's more to it than that. So it's-
Yeah, it may be, I don't
Right.
know.
Okay, and then besides, I mean, if we tell them, hey, we're not ready, what happens? What does the county do?
Well, it's not that, I think that what we'll do is we'll work with the county to reduce the scope and reschedule our work. So I think we'll get through it.
And I think you mentioned yourself, can you take the whole project in-house yourself by having some of your key people run the project? I'm sure we can do it for half. I mean, it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is the schedule. So if we only have the shorter period of time that they're giving us, we wouldn't be able to do it in-house. But if we reduce the scope, we might be able to take enough off the contractors to get a reasonable price.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Johnson?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Balch?
Aye.
And Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. We go on to item number 9E, consider proposed revised budget for the fiscal year 2025. For information, Norma?
Yes, thank you. So included with your packet was the proposed amended budget for fiscal year '25, and we also distributed another updated copy for that. And as you recall, in September of 2023, the board approved a 3-year budget for fiscal years '24 through '26. And in December of '23, staff completed a mid-year review for fiscal year '24. And then carefully developed an amended budget for fiscal year '25. It became evident through our water sales that there was going to be an amendment needed because of the decrease in water sales. So the amended budget does include a decrease of about $986,000 in water sales revenue for water sales projections decreasing from 4,154 acre feet down to 3,500 acre feet. So overall operating revenue is projected to decrease 6% or 986,000. Again, this is from lower projected water sales. The amended budget also includes some changes to our operating expense budget, and two of the notable changes are water treatment, a decrease of about $500,000, and this is specifically for the Cater treatment plant. The original budget included a projection of 2,700 acre-feet running through the Cater plant, and with the reduction in water sales, we now project to run about 2,012 acre-feet through the plant. The budget also includes an increase in joint powers, specifically the Kachuma Operation and Maintenance Board and the GSA expense. This increase is $177,000. $56,000 is related to the GSA expense, and $121,000 related to an increase in the COMB budget. So overall, operating revenues are still projected to decrease 3% or $324,000, going from about $10.1 million to $9.8 million. Some other changes to the operating expenses, personnel increasing about $36,000, and this is just a true-up and more accurate projection that takes into account a 5% COLA and any step increases. Includes a decrease of about $34,000 for general and administrative, and this is specifically the credit card processing fees. And a decrease in the state water, power, and chemical of $17,000, and this is for lowered costs for the Department of Water Resources. So again, just an overall decrease of $324,000 in operating expenditures. There is no change to the capital expenditure amount of $1,040,000. There was a reallocation of about $130,000 from two projects to the headquarters well chemical feed project, but it didn't change the overall capital budget that was approved. Okay. It's a brief presentation. There was no changes to the rates that were already approved, so. If you have any questions.
Questions?
A
Go ahead,
real
Shirley.
simple one. With the drought taken off, are we the same as we were as far as in expenses and income, or we're worse off or better?
Yeah, so the drought charges were removed in May of this fiscal year, and they had, when the board approved the budget in September, they were already removed out of fiscal year 25 and 26, so there was no changes to the revenue based on that. It's just a decrease in the sales that's causing that loss of revenue.
So going out of drought is not harming our bottom line?
And not the fiscal year 25 and 26 budgets, because they weren't included in there.
I see. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Nora.
Sure.
We go on to item number 10, Director Reports. 10A, CCWA Board Meeting, April 25th, 2024. Shirley?
Okay, thank you. So we opened in closed session, and the only thing to report was a vote and approval of the executive director's compensation package was increased by 4%. And then we returned to open session and water supply report. It's good. We have water. Central Coast Water Authority has 43,000 acre-feet to deliver in the next water year. And South Coast, the South Coast water contractors may have water to sell if we need to buy extra water. They have an excess of their needs. Approved Resolution 24.03, which we've been discussing for some time, the administrative rules for the transfer and exchange of water. In other words, transferring between the members of CCWA. And review of the new personnel manager, policy manual, which is just mostly to comply with new legislation, approved. Yeah, and the employee benefit adjustments was approved. And, sorry. Oh, yeah, and the annual budget was finally approved. We've had many versions of that. It's a $60 million budget. It went up 4% by $600,000. And the date of the next meeting, which it would be tomorrow, was canceled. And that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Item number 10B, COMB Board Meeting, April 22nd, 2024. Polly?
Thank you. So we ratified Resolution 797, which is President Biden declared disaster areas in several California counties, including Santa Barbara. It basically just formalized the work that we were doing with FEMA this year from this year's storms in January and February of 2024. It wasn't as bad as last year. There's about $200,000 that we're working with them on a weekly basis, mainly from debris damage from the storms. We had a Q3 financial quarter review, and all is on track. We had a presentation on Phase 2 of the water quality and sediment management study, and really tried to look at the what was going on with the TOCs, the phosphorus, and the hydrogen sulfide. These are coming down with the water that has been so much higher, obviously, this year, but we're still trying to study where it's coming from, chemicals coming in from the Zachar fire, and what we need to do to mitigate these things. So we are going to collect more data and do an aeration pilot study so that the aeration might help with dissipate some of these things. And again, as I said, the TOCs have decreased from the 2023 and 2024 storms. And so that is good for fish safety. Let's see. We approved the purchase of a new electric truck to replace the one that was purchased in 2008. This will include charging stations on site, and it falls in line with the state law to get to zero emissions by 2027 for special districts. The cost was $75,000. At least at the time of this board meeting, 160,000 acre feet had spilled this year. It is cooler and, at least at the time, higher than last year. So we are looking to possibly have a surplus through June like we did last year, and are monitoring that. It would be, therefore, about 3+ years before we'd need the emergency pumping facility back in. We're applying for what's called a 404 FEMA grant for the Lauro bypass damages. And so it's, as of the recent meeting this week, we're cautiously optimistic that we're going to get that, which will help offset the budget that I'll get to in just a minute. That would be for about $900,000, so we're watching that very closely. Also, as COMB continues its sustainability plan, we are partnering with the city of Santa Barbara and the county of Santa Barbara so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. What are they doing that we can borrow from to get efficiencies as we all try to move to cleaner energy? On the operations front, our log booms broke again around the tower. This is about every couple of months now, and so we do have it in the budget to do a different kind of material to better fortify that. The elevator was working okay, but it now, as of the meeting this week, is broken again because of the moisture from the high lake that it's getting into the sensor box, so we're trying to get that fixed. All fish activity is good with the lake levels and the streams. They did move some fish as they were moving from the releases from the gates to the outlet works in Hilton Creek, but other than that, the fish are very happy. I'll be attending the Fish Committee meeting on June 6th, where we will review the annual monitoring summary for 2023, so that's on track. We were behind a couple of years for a while, and that's getting back up to speed. The inventory continues for the oak trees. Some trees have been flooded with all the releases continuing, but the inventory is on track, and the oak tree program is still looking to sunset in 2025. For closed session, there was no reportable action. For the admin committee meeting, Director Hansen and I reviewed the proposed budget for 2024 and 2025. We moved it for approval to the board. A couple of things that were notable, the biggest, the budget went up about 20%. The personnel costs were, the budget went up about $600,000, and that is divided into personnel costs at about $200,000, operations and maintenance at $15,000, general and administrative at $28,000, infrastructure at $65,000, and habitat improvement projects for the fish crossings was $290,000. We had some money last year that we only spent $200,000. So again, the fish crossings are very, very bare bones. But the biggest change this year was the offsets. We had $780,000 less in offsets that we had the previous year, and that's what really kind of screwed us up. But there's two pieces of good news. It looks like I don't want to say it, but we're cautiously optimistic that this grant to help us with the Laurel bypass will come through. We just jumped through a big hoop this week, so we don't have it yet, but it certainly is looking good, and that would be about $900,000 towards what we would have, our portion that we would have to pay for that fix. And the other good piece of news is that we did get permission to move $1 million of one of our grants that we had charged us for the barge back. So we have $1 million back sitting in LAIF, and we'll get a share of that back too. So it's a little bit of money that helps offset what went up. We've had a $2 million budget before. We've just been spoiled the past couple of years with grant money. But anyhow, that's what happened there. So the board meeting this week, we approved the budget, as we said. I'm sorry, there was also one more change. To make it easier for the member units, we put the monies for the Laurel fix, which is the biggest project, into Q4. And I was about to cut carp until I realized that the work starts next month, so I didn't do that. Anyhow, I wouldn't have done that. I'm just kidding. So our portion was about $830,000, I think, something like that. But we have confidence in management and staff that they are using this frugally and that they are looking for money everywhere that they can. Let's see. Also, we're working to digitize the Bureau of Reclamation's original historic records of the South Coast Conduit and the portal infrastructure, so that is good news. We still are in water surplus, and will be for the time being. The releases have gone back and forth from the gates to the outlet works, and as I said, they're now in the outlet works and going through Hilton Creek. And we had a closed session to go over the general manager's performance appraisal and compensation, and gave her a 5% market adjustment plus a 4% merit and COLA. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Polly. So that covers both.
All three.
Yeah, 10B, C, and D. Thank you. Then we move on to item number 11, General Manager's Report. Bob, 11A, Financials.
Okay, I'll start with.
Sorry, Norma.
It's okay. Packet page 110, the water sales budget to actual. So as I've been mentioning throughout the year, our water sales are coming in below what we had projected. So through March, we're about 210 below budgeted projections. And I do have the April numbers. Actually, April came in at 167, so which is the lowest it's been in the last 15 years. I look back through to 2009, it's never been this low. So I think we're going to come in probably at that 3,300 acre feet, so it'll bring us about 378 acre feet below projections, so about $600,000 in revenue this year.
And that's the lowest in history?
The 167 is just lowest since 2009, so last 15 years. The 146 acre feet of sales in March was the second lowest in the last 15 years.
In 15 years. Oh.
Yeah. I didn't go back further, but I probably haven't. But yeah, it's sad to see when those came in. Okay, so packet page 111. So through March, we're 75% through the year. Our water sales are at about 72%. Overall revenue is at 74%. Our operating expenditures, as I mentioned earlier, we did a mid-year review, and when it became evident that our water sales were going to come in significantly under budget, so staff really cut back on what we could, including like one of the big things is personnel. We haven't filled 2 vacant positions, so that's helped us to cut costs. We've also reduced operations expense, so our overall expenses are at 67%, so about 7.5% below what we had projected. And again, that's just staff trying to keep costs down to write out this loss of revenue for the current fiscal year.
So what does it do not to have those 2 seats filled?
It obviously
We're
puts
down
a little
2 in headcount.
Yes, in operations. Mm-hmm.
So how's that being mitigated?
The staff's just doing a lot more work, and I think that until we're also holding off on the salary comp study because it has been difficult to fill positions as well. The last time we went out, I think we got 2 applicants when we used to get hundreds. So it's...
So we're waiting on the compensation with that? Okay.
Yeah, we
Okay.
figured we'd just wait on that since, and then we also to hold costs down, so.
Okay.
Okay, so that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Norma. Any questions? Okay, Bob, you want to take item number 11B?
Yes. I put a, in your packet, thing about the new cross-connection control policy handbook, which is a new resource that the State Water Resources Control Board has come up with. And for many years, the guidance that we would use was from USC. There was a cross-connection research program at USC, and cross-connection, for those of you who may not be familiar with that term, is really looking at the potential for water that is not originating in the public water system getting into the public water system. So for example, you might have a industrial process that's taken some water from a water meter and it's treated it or added chemicals or added fertilizer or added any number of things, or they could not add anything and it could just be exposed to high risk or hazards that may cause a problem if it were to re-enter the public water system. There are many different ways that it can re-enter into the public water system. It can actually be pumped back into, if you have a pump hooked up to your system and it pumps backwards inadvertently, it could possibly go into your system. There's also events where you may have a water main break somewhere and it drops the pressure into the negative. And so it actually will suck water into the distribution system. And so because of that, they've come up with a number of methods to control what we call backflow, anywhere from an air gap, which is the highest level of protection, down to double check valves, which are typical on, for example, fire sprinkler systems. Anyway, all of that the guidance was coming from USC, and now it's been moved over to the state board, and in particular, this handbook. There was a process of developing this document, and our staff submitted public comments on some of the areas that we thought were a little bit extreme, and I'll get into those in a minute. Why this is pertinent is because this will have an impact on many, I think up to 100 properties in the district, in that they will have to get a backflow device. and then they'll have to get it checked annually because that's the requirement with the backflow device. And that's largely because there's been a new list of hazards identified, high hazards, and you can see on your screen there's a little document called Appendix D, and that lists some of them. Many of these don't apply, to the existing users that I'm talking about, with the exception of the fire sprinkler connections being required now to all have what we call a RP device, with a reverse principle device, which is just below the air gap. And so we sent out letters once we got the handbook, we sent out letters to all 100 meters that are affected, notifying that they're going to need to get a backflow device. The standard is for fire sprinklers, if you installed your fire sprinkler system within 10 years of the adopted handbook, which 10 years, so since 2013, if you installed a fire sprinkler system, then you have to have a backflow device. This was true for commercial and industrial fire lines, but for residential, it was not true. And so it looks like there's going to be some required fire sprinkler or required backflow devices for those applications. Another area where we think it's going to affect our customers is on commercial accounts with 1 meter and multiple units. And the argument in the handbook, and this is one of the items that we commented on in the comment period, was that you have to require backflow devices on meters that serve multiple commercial units behind a single meter. And that's because we aren't able to monitor who is in each unit of a multi commercial unit, because there's no mechanism for us to do it. If they all had their own meter, then we would get the change of customer, and we would be able to tell what the use was going to be and determine whether it's going to be a hazard. So there are many commercial units out there that have multiple units. They don't have hazards in their tenants currently, but doesn't matter. We have to require a backflow device because we can't monitor those every day to see, if a non-hazard application has moved out in a new hazard. For example, on this, there's a little shop on 919 Maple Street. And we were actually contacted by this owner, and they requested a variance because they didn't believe that it was applicable to them, but it is, unfortunately. And they have 4 units in a building, and 2 of them are rented out. One is a quilting store, and the other is a hairdresser. And the problem that we run into is we can't verify if that owner gets a vacancy and they rent it out to some sort of processing application that would then become a hazard. And so in order to just protect the water system, we have to put a backflow device on there, so that it doesn't matter if someone comes in and introduces a new hazard to the system. It's protected.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So how would you know if it was a single business and it was, the landlord paid the water bill and didn't plan on changing it? How would you know if a single business changed to a potential hazard?
Like it was renting it out?
Yeah, like if I own just a single commercial building and change tenants, then you would have no idea on it, right?
Yeah, it's a good point, and that was not one of the requirements in the handbook. If you go to the last slide, Lisa, you can see our public comment here. It says, yeah, here you go. Thank you. So this is our comment. What's the rationale behind listing business parks with a single meter serving multiple business as a high hazard facility. If a 2-inch water meter serves a business selling sunglasses, an office building, and an AT&T store, for example, what is the considered threat? And their response was, unless a public water system has a continuous evaluation of the types of business in a business park, the business park could be considered a black box, and a public water system would not be aware of changes in use. This situation is similar to, I guess, a section 35 of hazard assessment. So basically, there's a specific term used as a business park, which is multiple units in a single meter. As far as that is a situation that potentially could be a problem where an owner owns a building and is renting it out to non-hazard and it becomes hazardous. But again, we haven't been doing this for many years and it hasn't been a problem. The only reason we're changing now is because the guidelines have changed. So I can't answer your question, Director Balch, in terms of it making more sense to do all commercial meters, but the handbook's specific about business parks.
Thanks.
Okay, actually, Bob, I don't want to belabor this, but basically, we're trying to protect individual businesses, or because our water supply is protected because we have a backflow preventer. I'm assuming in all commercial buildings.
No, we don't have them in all commercial buildings. And so that's the problem is now the handbook is making a distinction between multi-unit commercial buildings and single unit commercial buildings, and they're saying the multi-unit ones have to have a backflow device. They have not said that the other commercial have to have a backflow device.
So even if there's a single commercial unit, right now they do not have backflow preventers?
So for example, a restaurant wouldn't have a backflow device. They're required to have certain things like, in the restaurant itself, they have to have air gaps between, plumbing fixtures have to be set up so that they're not high hazard, but there's not actually a requirement to have a backflow device.
If I might, I think there's lots of holes in the backflow prevention program. I mean, think about single-family residences are required of them either.
Well, actually, I was going to go there because on the master meters, if you got one bad actor, that exposes everybody in that building.
Right, so you might see this as a step of an evolution toward a more perfect system, but it's very far from perfect. I don't know if people realize you're supposed to have a little air gap backflow preventer on every hose faucet at your house, but very few people do.
All right, so.
Yeah, I had a question. How much do they cost and how much do we bill for them?
They're very expensive, actually. So for a 1-inch backflow device, I think I was given the amount of about $3,000, which is a small device. So
that's installed. That's
installed, yeah. And so then every year you have to get it tested, and I'm not sure, that's probably $400 or $500.
Yeah, it's not that much just for a test. What gets expensive is if it fails the test and then has to be fixed and retested. But I think I'm probably wrong, but I think it's about my 2-inch ones I get tested annually, and I think they're about $100.
Okay. You might have the long-term discount. Same guy for a long time.
He never shows up. I just pay the fee, and I'm just kidding.
I do believe
I never
that.
see him, but he does submit the appropriate test results to the district.
So Bob, so you feel this is the first step to the next step? Because I'm actually surprised that these commercial buildings are not required to have a backflow preventer.
Unless they have a hazard, unless they're evaluated as a hazard, have a high hazard use inside the commercial building.
Yeah, but like Casey said, if they change tenants, nobody knows till it's too late. Anyhow, I think it sounds like you're following the state requirements. That's
Yeah,
all.
I just wanted to get you guys up to speed because you probably will start hearing some squawking from the community about why are we doing this. We're simply following the state guidelines that have changed.
It does bring up a question for future or new development. Would that be a rule and regulation the district would want to consider, protect? I mean, the handbook is the standard. We could have more restrictive.
You mean
chose to.
on commercial or residential?
I mean, you could consider it on every, I mean, I don't know about single family because that would be, well, there's not much of that anyway.
Right,
I don't know.
but-
It's something we could study a little bit.
No, I
don't
agree.
have the answers. I
I
just
agree.
posing
All
a
it takes
question.
is one, and it's not necessarily a bad actor. It is just somebody makes a mistake, and everybody's at risk. So it is.
When you think about a front lawn that's not protected, and the source of bacterial contamination could be from many sources in that front lawn, and if you have a water main break that causes a vacuum,
Yep.
every sprinkler in that system is actually sucking
Well.
everything into it. It's not a pretty picture, but that's the way the standard is today.
Yeah, one of the cool things about our new meters is we do have a backflow alarm. So when backflows actually occur in a meter, we get an alarm on our portal, or AMI portal. We've only seen it a few times, and most of the time it's related to water being pushed up a hill that then, pump fails and the water comes down the hill and pushes back, backwards through the meter.
That's good to know. It makes sense. If you're gonna spend 19 million on new smart meters, you might as well put a little thing like that included.
Well, it's a nice feature. Let's face it.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was one of the. I mean, it was one of the benefits. So what you're telling me is that the residents are safer. Well, anybody with a smart meter is safe. Okay. We'll leave it
Well, I'm
alone.
not saying that they're safe, and just to be clear, the backflow or cross connection program is really to protect the public water system. It's not to protect users that are maybe connected through a, post after the meter water system.
Okay, Bob, it's all yours.
All right. Then the next thing I'll just talk about are the intent to serve letters. You can see there's 7 issued letters between April 18th and May 15th, and they're all either remodels or ADUs. Seems like this is pretty much the standard request we get these days. Although the big developments have requested in the past, but not much has been happening. And then we did get a request from a small mixed-use project on Carpinteria Avenue that we're currently reviewing, and this proposal will require some fire sprinklers, so we'll be looking at the calculations for that, and of course that will have a backflow device. Other than that, I don't have anything to report. We don't have a water supply report this month because the water supply wasn't really changing much, and a lot of the staff was out as we were preparing this, so it just didn't get prepared.
Okay, Bob, thank you. And that leaves us at number 12. Consider dates and items for the agenda for Carpinteria Valley Water District Board meeting of June 12, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. Carpinteria City Hall, 5775 Carpinteria Avenue, Carpinteria, California, and we are adjourned.
Recording stopped.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we having a meeting on June 12th?